What's going on, everybody? I have no idea if anyone's on this or not. I should probably monitor. I can probably monitor this. Anyway, this is the first Block Rock. Ben had asked me to start doing this, and I think it's a fabulous idea to just discuss, my own perspective of crypto, being a musician, coming from that world. And I'm going to have guests on since I meet people all around the planet with all my crazy travels that I do. And I'm always interested in what people think of the future. Where do they think it's going? What's the struggle like? Are people aware of the fiat standard? Are they paying attention to the fiat standard? So that's always an interesting thing. I'm going to see if I can also see comments on here. I guess I have to check YouTube for that, right? Because I can't see them here. So I will try to find that. But yeah, so that's kind of a thing, is being curious. Being curious about what people think about what's happening. And of course, we're in such a crazy time. I mean, one thing that's really interesting about traveling as a musician is that I'm constantly looking at how the personalities of different countries and different cultures are responding to the global banking cartel, or the global banking cartel's shakedown on the common people, which is absolutely happening in full swing. And, we can't be fooled by the political theater that's just constantly being thrown in our faces. But it is fun to also make light of some of it, because, again, as I'm traveling around on the ground level, people are still living their lives. They're doing what they can. They're doing what they have to, Doesn't even matter what country or what kind of regime or what kind of government. I mean, I was recently all over China, communist country. On the ground level with the common people like myself, everyone's just going to work, taking care of their families, doing the grind, right? And everyone's using the fiat system, which is clearly not getting us anywhere, Anyway, I have a couple talking points that I thought might be interesting. So let's see. Okay, so this is a talking point here. So crypto as a new patronage system for music. Now, I'm tying some of this to music, obviously, because that's the point of this Block Rock, right? Play on Black Rock, but blockchain, rock, music. I just love this idea. It was Ben's idea. And a lot of people in the creative community, and everything's creative, but when I say creative, I'm limiting it to like the creative arts, so to speak, film, music, visual art. They're not really paying attention to crypto. I noticed that. And I've been slowly hooking people, getting them kind of into it, because somebody's got to. So, I feel like kind of like an evangelist, and when I'm in my music circle, just spreading the word of crypto, which I think is the best case scenario we have. And connecting crypto and music is something that I've been thinking about. There are some people working on different things, but it's not really like in our faces. Like who's making the next, who's going to make the next Spotify, the decentralized Spotify, who's really building the site where people can create things and then tokenize them as NFTs and do direct to consumer sales or licensing or whatever it may be, you know, like take out the third party or fourth party or fifth party at this point in the music industry. So that's something that I want to investigate with this channel as well. And I am going to have guests on. It's like I said, I meet so many cool people and I learn from everyone. Every single person that I talk to, I learn something from. And I think that's a big part of this journey too, of course, as we expand our connection to the consciousness, we're constantly learning. Even if it's me thinking that I don't even know anything right now, which is often where I'm at. And today I was just dealing with some personal stuff that, you know, it was one of those mornings where I was just like, wow, okay, here's another life thing. And, you know, then I just go, okay, just got to keep going. Got to do this. Get into the move, get into the groove, come here to the club, get to work, you know, worked all day, helped some members. We're just keeping the crypto movement full steam ahead. But those life things keep happening, you know, and sometimes it's just like dark waves of the creeps. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but there's like the dark creep waves where I don't know why I can't see. Why can I not see? This is weird. I'm just trying to see if I can see the chat, but I can't. It says 4 messages. Can't see any of them. I guess because I'm not logged in. Well, I'll have to look at them after until I can figure out where I can see them. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so these life things, it's like dark waves. You know, something will happen, and a shift will occur in something that you're involved in or whatever, and then that, of course. Yeah, Sherp's texting me. I love it. Thank you, Sherp. In StreamYard on the right-hand side on top, you should see comments in the section. Okay, I don't, but it's probably because I'm in some kind of weird full screen mode here. Comments. Okay, there's some. Cool. All right, great. God, Cannabis, and Bitcoin is here too. Fabulous. And Sherp, you're there. I love it. Thanks so much. Yeah, like this is episode 1. This is just a soft launch. I just need to get it going. And obviously it's going to grow and it's going to get refined. And when I start having these cool guests on, which will include in-house guests here in our organization as well, because it's also fun for us to chat with each other about all the things we're doing. And there's so much going on in crypto, so much going on in the crypto space. There's so much going on in Bitcoin Ben's organization with everything that Ben and Jay are spearheading. It's just wild. And I'm just part of this, which is really cool. I'm just here doing this stuff in Nashville currently, left New York, had to escape that place. I get into this conversation a lot about the lockdown because that seemed like a real big consciousness shift for many of us. You know, we got into this world. everyone was in a different part of the United States, or a different part of the world, rather. I realize it's kind of late for any of my European friends. If you're up, if anyone's on, this is cool. And the lockdown was different depending on where you were. I was in New York City, which was easily the worst possible place you could be. And, that gets you really kind of crazy about rethinking where you live, because if you witness a huge amount of people, almost the entire population of New York City completely fell to their knees so quickly without questioning anything and without giving anyone a chance to question anything. Well, that was a pretty big red flag for me. So, and I was already into crypto. And, what I really liked in the crypto space was how many people were not on board with that mentality. How many people were really thinking about personal sovereignty and how do we protect ourselves and where's it all going, right? So anyway, getting back to my points here, let me just dive into them a little bit. They're these have to do with music, so may not relate to everybody, but in some way, everything it relates, since everything is connected and we're all connected. So crypto as a new patronage system for music is what I was talking about before, basically taking control of your work and tokenizing it and decentralizing it. So you don't need the gatekeepers anymore, and you can actually get what you deserve, right? Because right now, I don't, mostly only musicians know this, but Spotify basically pays musicians almost nothing. Their model it's like impossible, even on their end to really score. The streaming thing is just so out of control. Music used to be physical product that was how people consumed music, with records and CDs and tapes, whatever. And that was a big part of an artist's income, believe it or not. That was a time. And then, of course, with the streaming thing, all of it gets broken down into little micro bits, just like how everything is about little shared bits. Someone was just telling me about real estate now that you can go in on and then divvy it up to a bunch of young people, so they just buy little bits of it. Interesting. Not against any of it. I'm not even against streaming. I mean, streaming audio, streaming music, streaming movies. It's part of the deal. I'm just always weary of, who's getting what and who's doing what. So Spotify basically doesn't pay musicians. Might as well not even pay them. You need to have so many unbelievable amounts of streams for that. And I think that's going to collapse. I see it all around me. I mean, nobody is earning any kind of real money doing that kind of work. I'm not talking about, the tier one stuff like Taylor Swift or Rammstein or Metallica. That's continuing in the legacy system. Although I bet you if you put a pencil to their numbers, it's not the same anymore either. Because how can it be if the money supply keeps getting printed? So, that's pretty wild, Music as a medium for sovereignty. So music's always been a force of cultural change. When combined with crypto, it becomes not just art, but also a vehicle of sovereignty, which anything really, when you combine with crypto, is a potential vehicle for sovereignty. And sovereignty is probably in the eye of the beholder, right? But technically, what does it mean? Let's look it up. Let's look up the definition of it. Let's see, what does this thing mean? The actual definition. Let me find out. Let's see. Definition of sovereignty. Sovereignty is the supreme authority and power of a state, community, or individual to govern itself without interference from outside forces. At its core, it means self-rule and independence. In political science, sovereignty usually refers to a nation's ability to make laws, control its territory, and direct its own affairs. In a more personal or philosophical sense, sovereignty can also describe an individual's right and ability to act freely, make choices, and maintain autonomy over their life. So it means exactly what we want it to mean. And I got a question. I'll get to it in a sec. And yet, how many of us are really living this way? Is it even possible, right? The big question. Because we're sort of free, and there's different levels, degrees of that around the world, right? For the most part, I go about my day and no one's really bothering me, so to speak. But it's very difficult to earn a living. For decades and decades as a musician, I was totally broke. That's how it was, right? And you sort of run around and everything's a hustle, and you just work constantly, and everything's a side hustle, and you're giving lessons, and you're playing every kind of toilet gig, and you're doing tours, and you're fixing guitars. I was even doing that on the side, and you're also taking jobs every so often when it gets really bad. Like I would do AV gigs, like go work at the Marriott doing, Times Square Marriott doing conferences or whatever, just from, running pipe and drape or all kinds of AV stuff. But all that's experience. So, it's all part of the big picture. But I was just asked, what was my experience on tour regarding crypto? And my experience is always surprising to me. And what surprises me is that the majority of people I talk to really don't know anything about it. So that means we're so early in this circle, as big as it seems to us in our world, right? It's tiny. So yeah, that's usually my takeaway every time I travel. Now, occasionally, I will get into a heavy, deep, amazing conversation with somebody about crypto. Like I was in Germany, of all countries, Germany, the country that sold their Bitcoin, supposedly. Anyway, I was in Germany, and I was playing this festival in Munich, which is in Bavaria, in southern Germany. And I was playing this festival, and the production manager, my guitar player, was like, dude, you got to talk to this guy. He's a crypto guy. And then so we started chatting, and this guy, I couldn't believe it, but he was living like 70% in the crypto space and 30% fiat. So I'm thinking this guy has figured something out, But yeah, we got into it. We got into the whole thing, how we got into the space. Everybody's always got the crazy story of how did they get into the space, right? And I think most people who are part of Bitcoin Bends know how I got into the space at this point. I think I've probably talked about it in the classes many times. But everybody has an amazing, unique story of how they got into the crypto space. But continuing with the answering this question, so my experience is largely that. It's most people have no idea, but then I will meet somebody and the conversation goes real deep. Somebody who's like super into the space or super deep in crypto. And a lot of time the conversations are really about the ethos of crypto, which is freedom, personal sovereignty. And that still rings very true for me, because I've lost money. I've learned everything the hard way. I've watched exchanges dissolve in front of my face. But I'm still in the space, and what's kept me in the space is my absolute fascination and belief in the ethos of the crypto movement. You know, it's not about how much USD I can get. Obviously, I'm trying to preserve what I work for and gain some wealth, but it's really about the change that it can affect in humanity. And this is the conversation whenever I find somebody who's into crypto. This is what we usually talk about. We usually get into it. This common thread in the crypto space is incredible. And it might be somebody who has 50 Bitcoin. It might be somebody who has 0.1 Bitcoin. You know, it doesn't even matter. The conversation is similar, you know? It's about freedom and sovereignty and how do we get out of this mess we're in. So that's most of my experience. The other thing that's interesting as I travel around too is, you know, do I see Bitcoin ATMs? You know, are there places where you can transact in crypto? I did actually see that in Thailand. You could transact in crypto more and more. Southeast Asia, probably. I mean, I haven't been all over Southeast Asia, but there's quite a bit of action in that part of the world. You know, I don't know what's going on in China because technically you're not allowed to do crypto, right? In China, as far as I know. I could be wrong. But still, obviously, people are still buying Bitcoin, right? We know. I mean, the Chinese were some of the biggest miners even, right? And so that's fascinating, you know. And then even just traveling around inside the USA, it varies from, you know, it's regional, you know, or North America rather. Like I'm in Mexico, not that many people are talking about crypto, and yet Mexico seems like such a ripe place for crypto or a Bitcoin standard, you know, right? And the United States is very weird because somehow it's the biggest player, right? I guess because there's a lot of capital to throw around, and yet it's one of the most unfriendly places for crypto. You know, like I couldn't even in New York, I couldn't even use Binance way before there was Binance USA, but the whole world was using Binance, and I couldn't use it. I wasn't allowed. So obviously that pissed me off because it's like, well, now I'm being told I can't work on something to increase the quality of my life, right? Being told, no, you can't do that. So that's very New York. New York is all about control. It's the worst place for sovereignty. I even asked ChatGPT this recently, and I said, how's New York City for a man and his personal sovereignty? And it gave me this whole spiel of how it's one of the worst places someone trying to live as a sovereign could be in. I thought that was hilarious. So it's really, you know, it's variable, you know, and we have all these things coming in the White House, which I don't know what half of them really mean. I'm sure there's an end game. It's all business. Somehow the banks want to get stable coins, but you know what? It's all making crypto bigger. So that's fine. Whatever. Just be wary. That's all. We always have to be on the lookout. We got to be sharp about our own personal freedom. And finding places where people are transacting in crypto, though, is pretty impressive, you know? So some countries I've been to where I see more of that, and other places there's less of it. I do notice, like, in some of the legacy fiat standard countries like France, Germany, yeah, I'm talking about in Europe, it feels like there's less awareness of the system and less awareness of crypto. Whereas you bounce over to the East, like Hungary, Romania, Poland, and it seems like there's a much different attitude about all that. And I will have some musicians on or people that I meet from those countries, and we're going to get into conversations about this And that's going to be interesting too. Because there are cultural things that affect the way we react or respond to everything around us, including this very system that we participate in. And that's something that I notice quite a bit. But jumping back into some of my points here. So let's go to the third one, the future convergence of sound and code. By the way, AI, obviously, huge narrative in the crypto space, huge narrative in the world, huge narrative in economics in general, huge narrative in civilization. That is also changing music, just like it's doing with visual art. And I'm not really against it. I think a lot of my colleagues are really they just get so anti whatever. I guess they feel threatened by it or whatever it may be. But, it's part of the evolution. We can't separate our things ourselves out or all that. It's like when people say, I hate people, but it's like, you're a person. It's like we're all part of this thing, right? So I have a couple bullet points on that we can look at in a bit. So the future convergence of sound and code, we're moving toward a future where music itself may be tokenized and programmable. Tracks could evolve dynamically based on blockchain triggers, or fans could unlock hidden layers of a song by contributing to a community pool. This fusion of sound, cryptography, and interactive technology could redefine what it means to experience music. So, think about that. That could be a whole different way we're experiencing the world around us. It was Jeff Booth's book, The Price of Tomorrow, where he talks about going to the Microsoft campus where they have a giant soundstage in which they're basically recreating the environment that we're in. And he says that you wouldn't believe how real it looks. So that's pretty wild, right? And yeah, let's see what else I can show here. I don't know if I can, but yeah, I don't know if anyone knows about that Microsoft campus. I didn't actually know that much about it. He even names the company that's based out of Vancouver that has been gathering all of this data and information to basically build our environment. So what do you call it? A hologram version of the environment, or it's a simulation of this, which may also be a simulation. So what does that really mean? Where does that really go? Okay, let's see if I can share this tab. I think that's how you do it. Yes. So this is my couple other points here. AI plus crypto as the new music economy. So this is about AI being part of how the business is done. It can generate infinite music, but crypto ensures scarcity and ownership. By minting AI-generated tracks as NFTs or on-chain assets, artists can prove originality and monetize in ways streaming never allowed. So you can start creating stuff, and you don't even need to know anything about music, really, because now we're shifting into a different wave. I'm sure there's going to be a time. I mean, as a piano player, I already feel like I've been playing an antiquated instrument. And that's whatever that is. People still seem to enjoy the piano. People still play the piano. People still learn how to play it. I just got a request to give someone a lesson just this afternoon even. So people still want to learn how to do that. So I don't think AI can take away that part of our interaction with this existence, right? We have curiosity. We want to be creative. I think people ultimately want to be creative. I think that's where everything goes, That's why when people are working some job, hamster wheel job in the fiat system, it often feels extremely what's the word I'm looking for? Disheartening, or, like a dark wave, because I think people are not being allowed to express themselves as creative beings in many positions. And we take those kinds of jobs so that we can earn money, so that we can have a place to live or provide for a family or whatever it may be. And years go by and you never get out of the hamster wheel, right? So that's a interesting philosophical thing to think about. Now, transparent royalty splits. So this would mean that royalties are all seen, and it would be automated. Like a smart contract could be taking care of that. So there couldn't be any funny business going on with that, right? Like cooking the books or shaving a little here as the fourth party or fifth party. Listener-driven creativity. So with crypto tokens, fans could vote or stake to influence AI music direction, choosing style, mood, or themes. This turns passive listeners into active co-creators of the art. Again, this is all fascinating because it's happening no matter what. People might want to try to stop it as a reaction, but the reality is it's best to adapt. Like Jung says, you got to adapt. Immutable musical archives. AI can create vast catalogs, but blockchain provides permanence, locking pieces into history so they can be erased or lost. So they can't be erased or lost. The fusion ensures both infinite creation and preservation. Well, that's pretty interesting. Let me see if I can go to the next tab, and then that's all I have for that, and we can just chat a bit. Here's the next one. This is pretty cool. I love that I can just do this, and even if it's just a few of you here listening, it's makes my day. And today it was a bit of a burnout. I'm definitely a fried chicken. We're here, Todd, Janet, myself are definitely fried chickens today at the club. But that's good because that means that there's a lot of stuff happening and that we're busy, and that's great. So this is the AI music thing for me, which is such a huge area to investigate and start learning. Because just like we're watching YouTube and, half the time people think, oh, there's a Michael Saylor video or here's a Charles Hoskinson video. And then you start watching it and you start going, wait a second. That's not Elon Musk. And you see like there's a weird pattern to the speaking and AI generated video, right? I mean, they have the picture, they have the voice. People don't even know what the difference is, and just think that this coming from somebody like me who's been on a computer since 1992, right? I remember when the internet first happened and my friends bought my name as a domain name and I had no idea why. They were like, trust us, you need this. And, where's that going, right? It's pretty crazy. So AI composes at the speed of thought, blending tradition with unheard possibilities. Musicians evolve into curators, guiding machines to manifest new sonic worlds. I mean, both of those points are interesting to me. The first one's really funny because it says blending tradition with unheard possibilities, which I guess you could say that, although my experiences so far with many AI-generated things is that it's relatively cookie cutter, relatively in the box, relatively homogenized cross-section of anything that's familiar, right? Is it pushing the envelope? Because that's what was always fascinating about human creativity, was how far we could push things with our minds if we connect and stay connected and go to true progression, right? Which is all of us connecting to each other, creating a gigantic energy field as we do every day, all day long, and then pushing the envelope to take something further. In the early part of the 20th century, in the visual arts, Picasso was painting, you know, relatively normal paintings based on the historical timeline right before him. And then all of a sudden, he got into this Cubist thing. Now, obviously, he got that inspiration from somewhere. There was a group of people doing things that were like that, that were lesser, unknown. But he did that, and that pushed things so far forward as far as what humans would accept as okay now, right? And in the beginning, it probably seemed real weird and crazy. And at the same time, there was this Russian composer named Igor Stravinsky who was creating music that was kind of getting out of the box, and until he created this piece called The Rite of Spring, which oddly enough had its debut performance in 1913, the same year as the birth of the Federal Reserve. And that, the first performance, which was in Paris, actually, it got booed. It was a ballet, and the dancers couldn't even hear their cues or anything. The whole thing just fell apart. People were throwing stuff at the orchestra and the dancers, everything. I mean, I can't even imagine that, because so many years later, it just sounds perfectly harmonious, right? It's like when you get pushback if you bring up Bitcoin to people, at a dinner or something, right? You're always going to get some pushback. But anyway, that's how it's always like that. Every time something that's pushing the envelope comes out, people seem to reject it, or the mass rejects it. And then there's a group of people who, obviously there was a group of people who thought it was incredible. And so anyway, I don't know where I'm getting off on some crazy tangent, but that's what this is. This is a stream. This is literally a live stream. And that rejection of that piece, years later, it basically became known as at least as far as music from the West goes, as one of the most important catalysts of change in music. So I feel like here we are in the crypto space, we're experiencing something similar to that, because now more people are starting to go, all right, yeah, tell me about this Bitcoin, or should I buy this Bitcoin for my kid, or should I be stacking sats, or, hey, I'm in my 60s, should I buy Bitcoin? Hey, I'm 21 and, should I get Bitcoin? It's like, obviously the answer is yes across the board. It is different for us depending on what age we're in, like for me, I don't think the same way about my particular portfolio or anything I'm working on as I would if I was 20, or maybe as a 20-year-old does. So we have to tailor it to our personal modes of existence, like Kierkegaard used to call it, the Danish philosopher. He used to call it the personal mode of existence, while he was chain smoking on the streets of Copenhagen, I suppose. And anyway, getting back to this, so the cookie cutter part is the part where I'm still looking at it going, this is just AI. But that's got to change. At some point, it will be creating itself and pushing its own boundaries, right? Because all it is a mirror of data that we've put out there, or a mirror of data that the universe has been compiling all through history. So how could it not? And, I think you can see it as even a tool. Like, to me, I just see it as another tool. Do I know how to implement it yet, or apply it practically as a musician or as a creator? No, I haven't figured that out, because that requires hours and hours of work So you do it when you can, and you try to figure out what's going on, right? Because before you know it, the day is done. I don't know what people have as different careers, but everyone's got this time management thing, right? And also time itself, which is a big component in music, but not in the same way we think of time as in like a watch or a clock or the clock on the phone or the time, the pressure's on because of the time. Time is actually infinite, but we've somehow managed to make it stressful, even though time is technically infinite. At least that's what I think anyway. Crypto authenticates and protects these creations through decentralized ownership. Artistry shifts from competition with machines to collaboration with them. Decentralization is really what everything's about. And I don't know anyone who's not on board with that, to me seems like either they're working for the control or they're not paying attention. The future of music is a human AI alliance reshaping sound, creativity, and sovereignty, which that's what I was just talking about, using it as a tool. Some of you may remember when like Adobe Photoshop came out. God Cannabis and Bitcoin says, do you know you can stream on Nostr Primal through Fountain for Zaps? Interesting. I mean, I know you can stream on Nostr. I did a class on Nostr actually, and I still have not applied Nostr into my life. So I don't know. That needs to be done. I mean, it's decentralized social media, right? I'm using Instagram a lot, which is totally centralized and owned by the same people that own Facebook. So all of that is, weird, But anyway, I'm just doing this soft launch. I appreciate anyone who tuned in, even if it was only for 5 seconds. All the energy helps me out. I'm continuing to use my Fold card and my Gemini card because I'm trying to get Satoshis. And after 30 years as a professional musician, really, for the most part, not ever having any real capital to allocate to invest in my future, I would say crypto really is the biggest game changer of all time. Because in the traditional financial world, a person like me wouldn't even have the chance to or opportunity to do that, And there's so many different solutions and things going into place in the innovative world of crypto that are happening so quickly. And it's very hard to explain, because you really have to get involved. And I mean, I love what's going on here with this organization. It's really interesting for me to see it grow the way it's growing, and to see more people coming in, and the more conversations we get into, and yeah, it's pretty interesting to me. But I'm going to come up with a nice list of guests. I got to organize that. I'll be here. I don't know if I can, maybe I can even do it on the road from my phone sometimes if there's ever a minute to do that. I'm here for the next bunch of weeks, so I'll do this. For now, I'll do this at this time, Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know if this is a good time for this or not, but this is all work in progress. And I'm wondering what anybody's how anybody's feeling right now about the altcoin market. Are we going to have an all season, or is it just never going to happen? So, God, Cannabis Bitcoin asked me, you meant the concerts, right? We could live stream the shows, you're saying. Yeah, I mean, we should be doing that. You're right. But getting people in the music industry to look at crypto is so unbelievably difficult for some reason. Yeah, you would think they're in an industry that's not really that conventional. So you would think crypto would be appealing because it's so unconventional. But instead, I don't know, it's like there's this weird rejection thing, even like the labels, the labels are all doing this business in what to me looks like such a relic way of doing things. And the fiat legacy relic is pretty, and, once you're in this crypto space, it's so easy to see and watch it, chug along, right? I mean, I see things happening in some countries way faster than in the legacy countries, which, have all the money. But everything is so slow moving and bureaucratic and often doesn't even get done for years and years, And, how does that apply to when fiat goes to zero, which we know it's going to zero? Is it going to be a huge destruction? I don't know. But something's going down. There might be some artificial events first. And one thing that is interesting, though, is with my close friends in my music circle or music business circle, many of them actually have been talking to me and saying, dude, it turns out you were right. And I just tell them, like, look, it's not me. I'm just looking around. I don't really know anything. I'm just trying to pay attention so I can protect myself, because we need to protect ourselves big time. I think, we go through the day taking that for granted. But of course, the powers that be can create an event, engineer an event. They can do a long-term manipulation. They could shut down a city, a country even. And, we have a member here who's from Burma. And, I'm having these interesting conversations with him. And he actually got me to do a little bit of a rabbit hole dive on Myanmar, which is previously Burma. Now it's called Myanmar. And it's like a full-on police state, right? And now it's become, I think it's a few years already, it's like this. And now it's become sort of that's the way of life kind of thing. So the things get normalized is what I'm getting at. Even a police state. On the ground level, people are just going to work. They're, sitting in the park. It's the craziest thing. It's the craziest thing, Anyway, I start getting crazy about all this stuff. But you know what? I'm going to leave it there for today. And I guess I'll be back on Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time in a week. And maybe I might have a guest. So I hope everybody's doing fabulous. I wish nothing but success and abundance and opportunity for everyone. And I hope that everyone's paying attention and still having a good time, because you can't stop living, right? Got to have no fear. Just live. I can't tell you how many times if someone finds out I have a motorcycle, the first thing out of their mouths is like, oh, don't die, or watch out, or oh my God. it's like immediately it just goes to that, right? Instead of, what it could be, which is maybe it's a cool ride. Anyway, peace out, everybody.